when you're working on a project and the timelines, even fuzzy ones, seem to recede into the future and the work seems to slow down because maybe the milestones that you expected to hit are you're not achieving them. And inside the team, you know what the answer is. Outside the team, it looks like either the team is slowing down or the dreaded scope creep has occurred. I used to get so prickly about people alleging scope creep when that's not what had happened at all. Here's what did happen. Here's what might be happening in your projects and your work. It's that when you have projected a plan, even a like lightly held plan in an agile situation, the what you discover once you are going in and doing your learning sprints or doing your research spike, you discover more things than you already knew. Obviously, that's why you do it. Maybe you discover dependencies or dependency on a team that is working on something that's totally unrelated but will affect your work. Maybe there's complexities that you were earlier unaware of. Maybe there are edge cases that you need to handle that did not come into the earlier thinking. So what you've got is a change in effort, not a change in scope or outcome that you're choosing to pursue, but a change in the effort that will help you get there. And so, inside the team, you all know the effort has changed, the expectations haven't. This is a difficult place to be as a team because outsiders will see either that there's this tense energy around the project, they'll see maybe that milestones aren't getting hit in the way that were expected, or they'll look like it's slowing down. And it's important to name what's happening and to talk about it. Even if there is not a change in scope, there needs to be a conversation. So these are the things that we need to recognize formally. One, that something has changed. We need to name the change. We need to restate or uh, remember what the outcome is. So possibly throughout recognizing this change, the outcome does need to change. But many times it doesn't. The outcome isn't what is going to give, something else is going to give. We need to show the impact of the change, maybe timeline, resources, sequencing of events, talk about the things that could change, and then ask for a decision. Get to a decision point. Even if it's the team making the decision, it's very useful to formalize it so that there's a record of the discovery, the change. What comes out of that decision is what is still true. Here's what the outcome is, and here is a revised plan. Whether it's a change in timeline or not, a change in resources or not. These things are very helpful to actually articulate so that others can see them. I've created a one-page guide, and I'm just going to kind of walk through that guide here on this video. Maybe it'll be helpful to you. At the end, there's an opportunity to download that so you can use it in your team. Okay, we're going to walk through this guide, and we're going to do it one section at a time. I feel like this is a good way to kind of have the discussion with a group so that you can walk through all of the ramifications of what you have discovered and be able to talk about it well, both within the team and with outsiders and leadership. So with the first section, after you've discovered some new effort or the timeline it needs to change or complexities, dependencies, all of those things, is you will restate the intended outcome. This is what we were working towards. This is what we are working towards. This is the kind of the headline of our project. And then you immediately follow up with a one-liner of, well, what did you discover? Why are we having this conversation? And when you say what you discovered, then you go ahead and close the loop. You say why this increases the effort. I guess it's possible if you discover that the effort is less, that you might have a discussion about that as well. You could shorten the timeline, you could give up resources. But I'm going to focus on the other way just because that's what usually happens is you discover that the effort needs to increase. And so the first box basically grounds the conversation about why are we talking, what are we working towards, what did we discover, and why is there an impact here. So that's section 1. Then you move to section 2 and you ask the question, did the outcome change? As we're having this conversation, did anything get added, expanded, or raised beyond the original commitment? It's just important to recognize that. Maybe the answer is no, none of that changed. We're shooting at the same target, but we know it's going to take more to get there. Or yes, we had a late requirement come in that we weren't earlier aware of. And so based on the thing that has changed, there are levers that you could pull, possibly. And depending on what the change is, it gives you either more or fewer levers you could pull. If you discover that there's more to do to get to where you're going, you have that famous triangle where, you have to change some of the legs of the triangle, or you can't squish all of the effort that you need to inside of it. So you could change the timeline, and in what way? Maybe you change the outcome. Maybe you pull the outcome into 2 pieces, or maybe you shave off a persona, or maybe you change how it's going to be distributed. Whatever it is, maybe the outcome changes. Maybe the resources change. Maybe you need to include more resources. Maybe you need to change who they are. And maybe sequencing. Maybe you do things in a different order because of things you've discovered. Maybe the thing you discovered wasn't even within the purview of your team. Maybe it's some other team's work, is what it is. And maybe it's related, maybe it isn't, but it causes a change to your project. And so maybe you have to resequence things. That's 2 and 3. So where we get here to step 4, stage 4, this is where we're going to actually make the decision about what needs to change. So up to this point, we're just stating the project we're working on, what we discovered, whether that discovery itself included a scope change. Now that we have the discovery, what are the things we could do? That's number 3. What could we do? And in number 4, here is where the team is saying, okay, here's what we are changing. Here is the timeline. Maybe the timeline isn't changed, but we'll restate it, or maybe it's a new statement of new timeline. Here is the outcome. Maybe it didn't change and we're restating it, or maybe it's a slightly changed outcome. Here are the resources. Maybe they're the same, maybe there's fewer, maybe there's more, maybe they're just different, and we're stating it. So 4 is a renewed project commitment. And then in number 5, what we want to do in all of our decisions and change record keeping, we want to say, here's what did change, here's what didn't change, and here's what we're going to do next. And that helps the audience for this record, which could be your internal team, it could be your leadership, it could be its stakeholders, to know here's what changed, here's what didn't change, and here's what they're doing next. And this helps kind of surface all of the things that need to be stated, keeping it in a concrete narrative that fits on one page that you can put with your project documentation, and it will really help I hope that was helpful to you. You can find this discussion guide in my work library. If you don't have access to that today, there's a link on the screen so that you can get access to that. And you can use this to help your team discussions because you do good work, even if sometimes there's more of it than you planned for.